Hey, welcome to OOTP Out of the Park Baseball 19. I'm Wendell G, aka Doggone. I wanted to sort of reboot an old OOTP sim that I did some years ago. I think it was in OOTP 13 or something like that. I did a Atlanta Braves dynasty, historical dynasty. Took the team over in 1991 and I traded for Greg Maddux as soon as possible in order to get them to the World Series and what have you. And the Braves won the World Series in that sim in 1992 over Toronto. And I guess I got bored, maybe not the right word, but I wanted a different challenge. And because I found it relatively easy to build the Braves into a powerhouse. And if I recall, for several years after that, I was not controlling them, but they just remained a powerhouse in the 90s. So here I'm in OOTP 19. I haven't played OOTP in several years in real life, and I want to try to see what I'm sort of knocking the rust off to see what would I do different, and how has the game changed? How has the historical sim changed? So let me give you a quick overview of the Atlanta Braves as of April 1st, 1990. Spring training is over. We finished last in the National League West Division, and it wasn't even close. Houston won the division in spring, or was at the top. Houston and San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Cincinnati, Midland around 500, and us in the tank. So here's the lineups, the primary lineup. Let me go to maybe our graphical charts here. Here we go. So the Braves, April 1st, 1990. This is what they look like on the field. The outfielders are Lonnie Smith in left, Ron Gant in center, and Dale Murphy in right. Infield is first base Dave Justice, second base Jeff Treadway, shortstop Jeff Blauser, third base Jim Presley, and the catcher is Greg Olson. Now the backups here, currently Otis McDowell is a more or less the utility outfielder, along with Javier Ortiz. Mike Mordecai, Ed Alicea, and Felix Fairman are the infield utility players, along with Bruce Crabb. Ryan Klesko is a prospect. He's age 18, and he is a prospective power hitter behind Justice at first base. Mike Stanley is a utility infielder backing up Jim Presley. Francisco Cabrera, line drive and a base hit. He is the backup catcher behind Greg Olson. Pinch hitters Javier Ortiz, Tommy Gregg, Ed Alicea, and Ryan Klesko. That's the depth chart. Now, the strengths and weaknesses here. I have been kind of poking around and looking at these guys, for a bit, thinking about what I know historically, which I'm not a baseball guru or anything like that, but I love the Braves. I grew up in rural Georgia, and I heard Skip Carey, Pete Van Weer, heard those guys, Ernie Johnson, heard them calling the Braves games sort of in the background all my life as a kid. And I heard before that, I heard the Braves broadcasts in the 60s and 70s too. And well, anyway, so partly my analysis of this team is very flavored by my sentiments and my, not just my emotional sentiments, but the how can I say this? My own gut feeling for how good the player is, right? Like, in my mind, Jeff Blauser was an extremely good shortstop, an integral part of the team. In my mind, I don't know why Jeff Treadway is playing second base. That's Mark Lemke's position, right? Then I go look at the ratings and I start to understand Lemke was a very light hitter and, so forth. So here's my brief analysis of the lineup's strengths and weaknesses. Outfield is pretty strong. Ron Gant and Lonnie Smith. Lonnie Smith's the highest paid player on the team. And Ron Gant in center field. Would not want to change those two positions. Otis McDowell has excellent range as a. I'm going to come back to McDowell, by the way. Otis McDowell, OSA, the OOTP Scouting Association, sort of the generic scouting info, is very high on Otis McDowell. He's incredibly good defensively with great range, great arm. Doesn't make errors from the outfield. He's got great speed, can steal bases. He does great base running. So he's an excellent late game sub for pinch running and leaving in the game for outfield, defensive work in the outfield. His bat is still, although he's 27, his bat hasn't grown to his potentials. Our scout, which is not terribly great, has a much more modest potential for McDowell. In fact, says he's basically hit his potential. He's, 45, 50 across the board. OSA says he's got room to grow in his power and eye. I'll come back to him. He's in the center of a conundrum I'm having right now. Probably I'm recording this because of the conundrum. Dale Murphy, he's a legend in Atlanta, and this is somewhere around here is when he gets traded historically from Atlanta. He's still a good defensive right fielder, and he can still hit for power if he makes contact, but he's diminishing. He's 34, and he's really diminishing. He is signed through next year, and I've decided to keep him on the team. His salary at $600,000 is not a big burden for us. We're a poor team, but that's not a problem for us. Every time I look at his profile, look at all the bling up here. Platinum Stick Award, the All-Stars, the Golden Gloves, the MVPs. The guy's a freaking legend. The Murph. Look what he did in spring training. Abysmal. A 174 average in spring training. Oof. Probably number 6 or 7 in the lineup, because he can still hit for that power. But, his OPS plus has been above 100. It was 162 just 3 years ago in 1987. But in 88, it dipped to 110, and last year, 89, it dipped to 91. And his average the past 2 years, 226, 228 as an everyday starter, played in 156, 154 games, almost every game. Thinking about making him a backup. That's not going to go over well. I would like to move Justice to right field and Klesko, start him at first base. That's really not going to go over well with the fans. So, So the bottom line here with Justice, I presume Justice is going to move to the outfield within a year or two. And so the outfield's going to be set. And then Lonnie Smith's going to, at some point, his contract's going to be up, and it's going to be too rich for us. $2.6 million contract signed through 1993. Whew. That's a big contract. He's 34, excellent, but he's fallen off a bit. Nevertheless, he led the team in spring training in everything, basically. So I like the outfield and the prospect. The infield's a different story. First base we talked about a bit. Klesko, he can play first base, not a problem. He's only 18, I think. Ryan Klesko is 18. And in real life, he really didn't grow into all this. He was much more sporadic, much more of a kind of a middle finger guy in terms of he would hit for power. In other words, his power slider would be high and the other's kind of low, like a middle finger extended profile. I call that a middle finger hitter. OSA is not as high on him as our own scout. When a guy's been in our system for a while, I tend to trust our scout more than OSA, particularly because our scout is usually less high on some people. But it looks to me OSA is probably just about right on this one, except he's got more power. Not a great fielder, but he's aggressive on the base paths. The middle infielders, Jeff Treadway and Jeff Blauser. I need to upgrade at middle infield. However, we have a great prospect coming up. Let's see if I can bring it up. Players, entire organization, position, all batters. Let's do view potential. Slide that up. Chipper Jones is coming up. He's 17. He's in the system. Vinny Castilla is in the system, age 22. Those are blue chip prospects. They're two of our top prospects. Castilla, in fact, is in AAA right now. And with just a little bit of progression, we're going to pull him up. Probably put him on third base. We'll see how he does. I project Castilla to be a mid-year call-up. So, what happened to Vinny, what happened to you, my buddy? Why did all my ratings just suddenly? Batters, batting potential, scouting, my guy. Scouting, OOTP. Oh, that's what happened. I was looking at OOTPs. Let's go with our guy. Okay, so our guy's not as high on Vinny as OSA is, but still pretty good, man. Pretty good. Let's see. Jones, Chipper Jones. That's a no-brainer. He's going to come up and he's going to play wherever we can make him fit in the infield. Shortstop is where he's trained in Durham. We'll see. We'll see how the sim goes. Shortstops and center fielders they can cross-train pretty easily. Of course, Ron Gant's already on our roster. He's a beast. Always been a big fan of Ron Gant. Javy Lopez is coming up at the catcher position. Let's see. Javy. Yeah. Our scout's higher on Javy's bat than OSA is, but excellent defensive catcher. Good on the base paths. Always been a big Javy Lopez fan too. Okay, and Jeff Blauser he's not sliced bologna. He's got good contact, some power to the gap, really good infielder. He had a really good spring training, 308. Last year he hit 270 for average, and He's still growing into his bat. So he's age 24. He's still got some room to grow. And he is on, I think, the minimum major league contract. Treadway, our scout really likes his, scout and OSA both really like his bat. Historically, I don't know what happened, but defensively and offensively, he looks really good here. In real life in Atlanta, he hit 277 in 1989, and he was a trade from Cincinnati. So I need to be patient with Treadway. So, but I'm still, nevertheless, despite the fact that Castilla and Chipper Jones are coming up, they're in the farm. Man, I'm itching to get me a top shortstop second baseman. Now, but the real problem we've got is third base. Jim Presley, he's 28. I don't remember him in real life stats. Looked like he came to Atlanta from Seattle before the 1990 season. He hit 242 in Atlanta. Not outstanding hitter. OPS of .697, and then was traded to San Diego before 1991. So lifetime 247 hitter at third base, kind of not what you want, Power, yeah, some power, but 19 home runs and 577 plate appearances. That's not a lot, On base percentage in Atlanta was .282. Not what you want. So, and he's making almost $500,000, which is for us kind of a lot. So anyway, one of these middle infielders coming up, we're going to move him. Either Chipper Jones or Vinny Castilla is going to go to third base. That's my plan. Or Jeff Blauser is going to move over. Catcher is a big weakness. We got Javy Lopez coming up, but let's see. Lopez, how old is Lopez? Let me go back here to players. Javy Lopez, he's 19, and he is at Greenville. Yeah, so he's playing in Double-A. So he's got a couple of years before he's ready to come up. So we got to do something for a couple of years. We have Mike Stanley, and we have you saw him, Greg Olson. Both good defensive catchers. Olson's a bit lighter on the bat than we want. We got him in a trade apparently from Minnesota in 1989. And he's had very few, he's not had a lot of experience at the plate, really. He got his most in 1988. I believe that's in the Minnesota organization. So, anyway, this guy, basically a career minor leaguer for the past 4 years, age 29. Yeah. I call him a 4A kind of a guy starting at catcher for us, so it would be really good to improve on that. Mike Stanley is age 26. He can be better, although not defensively. He's sort of a Midland offense, Midland defense kind of a guy. Okay, and with that, I want to move. So that's sort of an analysis of our lineup. We're weak at catcher, weak at third base. Murphy makes us weak at right field, but I hate to move him. Justice, we can make some changes there. We're okay in the middle infield. not spectacular. Our strengths in the lineup appear to be Ron Gant, Lonnie Smith in the outfield, and Dave Justice at first base. Pitching. I asked the AI to set up the lineups, and our starting rotation, the 6-person starting rotation, is Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Steve Avery, the 3 you remember. Also Ron Darling, Pete J. Smith, and Marty Clary. Bullpen, Joe Bover, Kent Merker, Derek Lilliquist, Paul Marek, and Walt Roy. 6 relievers in the pen, 6 starters on the mound. Probably, of course, we'll change that up to go to a 5-man rotation and then add another person in the bullpen. Okay. I did some transactions. Quite a few transactions since I took over the team in January. And let's see if I could work our way back and tell you what I did. Because I made quite a few moves. I traded. The first move I made was to try to help the catcher position. I had a 37-year-old catcher, Ernie Whitt, who was on a minor league contract, and I moved him to Texas in exchange for 26-year-old catcher Mike Stanley. That's where Mike Stanley came from. So we straight up traded those 2 guys. Now, I don't know the motive for Texas to make that move, but anyway, Ernie Whitt got very light duty during the spring. That trade makes it looks like I fleeced the AI, and maybe I did, but I find it very difficult to fleece the AI these days, at least for the good players. I traded 30-year-old minor league first baseman Nick Esaski. That's a name I do remember from my earlier years. Nick Esaski. Traded him to Houston in return for outfielder Javier Ortiz. And Ortiz looks really good on paper. My scout likes him a lot. He hit 350 in spring training, so we might have him actually. He's probably going to be slotted as Dale Murphy's backup in right field, but he'll kind of pretty much be. I may slot him more rather than less. He does tend to strike out a bit, but he takes his hacks at the plate. So anyway, really pleased with that trade. Things were going pretty good there. Let's see here. Traded, just messing around in my minor league system, seeing if I could get value for any of my players. I traded relief pitcher Bill Lasky, age 32, to the Cleveland organization in return for Felix Fairman, shortstop, age 26. Why? I don't really know. I don't remember. I mean, I got a little bit of something for a little bit of nothing. He's a great defensive, really strong defensive shortstop and middle infielder. Just gives us depth there. But his OBP was 278 in the spring, and very light usage. So minor league, emergency kind of a player, emergency defensive kind of a player. Just messing around, trying to learn the system again. Let's see. All the data, all the stuff's going to be here. Oh, here's the big one. Here's the big trade. I traded 33-year-old starting pitcher Charlie Leibrandt to the Mets. Whew. Why, dog? Why'd you do that? Well, it wasn't his salary. His salary wasn't too bad. He was only signed through 91. I could easily have kept him He's a good guy. He's got great stamina. You know, lefty. He holds runners. He had a pretty good spring. I don't know. I mean, I guess in my mind I have my history, my internal history of the Braves, and I just wanted to move him and see if I could get value for him. He was on the upper end of the age scale, and Atlanta is really not looking to compete right now, I say, but Lee Brandt's got a couple more good years in him, so, and that's not a bad salary, particularly after that, looking at Lonnie Smith's salary. But in return, I got a slightly younger pitcher, Ron Darling, 29-year-old Ron Darling, and a minor league relief pitcher, Mike Thomas. So I have this thing for Ron Darling. I like him. I want him. I remember the Braves facing him many times, and I think he's going to give us a good season or a few. He signed for a slightly less salary, $650,000. Again, signed through next year, 1991. So basically, I traded Darling. I was traded Lee Brandt for Darling, and Darling has slightly better stuff than Lee Brandt, but Lee Brandt's got better movement and much better control. So I'm kind of a sucker for lots of pitches, and he's got a forkball in there. So we'll see. Good stamina, holds runners well. Lee Brandt's a lefty. Darling's a righty. That might have been a mistake, but I don't know. He was an all-star a few years ago. Golden Glove, or Great Glove, Golden Glove pitcher. Yeah. Shopped 33-year-old catcher Jody Davis to Texas. Ooh, he was an all-star in the past. I didn't know that. In return, I got 27-year-old center fielder Cecil SB, switch hitter. And yeah, why, dog? Why? I don't know, man. Great defense in outfield. I have this thing for center fielders and shortstops. Just give me those guys. I know they got the range, they got the speed. And that was it for February. In March, I made a few more changes. Still trying to get my feet wet here. I traded relief pitcher Doug Sisk. Actually, he's a relief pitcher. Probably could start, but he's age 32. I traded him to the Padres for center fielder Darren Jackson, age 26, who I thought was going to, I thought was better than this, but again, good outfielder, good range, good, good depth. Although I keep thinking about depth, and this ain't football. You don't need more than a couple of the guys, So he only got very few appearances in spring training this year. All right. Oops, back up. Let's see. This is when I did before spring training, I asked the AI to set up all the lineups and stuff. I sweated over this one a little bit. I was searching for I was looking around, and I found that in the league's pitchers, there was a guy slotted at shortstop who looked like he was actually a pretty good pitcher, and his potential at shortstop was pretty low. So I traded for him he's a relief pitcher. I traded outfielder Al L. Martin, whom I don't remember in real life. He's got great speed. He's mediocre positional player, but he's only age 22. He's going to grow into. He's got some growing room here. OSA is much higher on this guy than our scout, so given that our scout knows our players pretty well, I felt okay sending this guy to the Reds, who are our competitors in the National League West. I felt okay trading these guys to get their shortstop, Trevor Hoffman. So I'm hoping that Hoffman develops into, what he was in real life, right? So anyway, felt like that gave us a lot of. That's probably my plum of the early season. Sergio Valdez broke his thumb while pitching, and put him on the 60-day DL. Again, it's a 4-week injury, and I don't know why I did that, man. I should have put him on a 15-day DL instead of the 60-day. But anyway, he's in our pen. Shouldn't be too terribly hard to replace if we need to. So that was March, and I haven't made any moves yet in April. It just turned over to April. I do have in my mailbox, I have a proposal from Detroit that I've really been sweating, and that is Otis McDowell. Now, they'll send us catcher Matt Noakes, age 26, $700,000 salary, can help us right now. Good defensive catcher, 2-star kind of a guy. He can help us right now. He had a decent spring training at Detroit. And Detroit is loaded with catchers. They got some good ones. This guy is probably their third or fourth, the guy who's third or fourth on the depth chart at catcher. He hit mid-250s in limited duty last year and the year before, but he's accustomed to playing every day, and he expects to be in the starting lineup. So this guy's not going to hurt the team. He's still got a little bit of growth left, according to our scout and according to OSA. So he's probably a can't-miss kind of a guy. Is he better than what we've got already? Compare, select players, Atlanta players. Let's compare him to Greg Olson. Here's Olson on the right and Noakes on the left. Noakes bats left, Olson bats right. So we could set up a platoon, right? That's fine, but we do have Javy Lopez coming up. But it's probably going to be a couple of years, as we said. So Noakes is a little bit better. They're both good defensive catchers, but Noakes is slightly better. Let's compare him to Atlanta players. Mike Stanley. Stanley, he's another righty. He can be a little bit better than Noakes, but it's real close, This is tomato maybe. So they wanted Otis McDowell in return. Now Otis McDowell, if you look at OSA, your eyes are just going to light up. A center fielder, age 27. Outstanding defense. Both my scout and the OSA agree. Outstanding defensive guy. Easily could train him to play right field, of course. Good base runner, great base runner. Late game defensive replacement, pinch runner. And he might actually be good enough with the bat to start, to be a starter. It really depends on his contact. So, unfortunately, our own scout is not as high on him as OSA. All of his batting ratings are a little bit hyped in OSA, and it's much more modest here, according to our head scout. And in spring, he hit for 238. 238's not going to cut it. Plus the fact he's not he's not going to get extra bases. He hit one double in the one double in the last week, but he's not typically a power hitter. He platooned last year, 1989. Well, no, I'm sorry. He was a starter in both Cleveland and Atlanta last year. And last year in Atlanta, he hit 304. But at Cleveland, he hit 222. So, yeah. Batting stats. Career 266 hitter. That's okay. It's not going to hurt the team too much, but you want it better than that, OBP 333. That's all right. If he can get on base, he's a threat. So, do I trade this guy for that guy? Well, I thought, nah, I don't really. That's not the kind of trade I want. And our assistant GM Ed Hawthorne said we really need to ask for more, dog. And so I looked around, and I thought, who do they have in their organization that I would like to get? And my eyes, well, first I saw Travis Fryman. No way I'm getting him. He's a blue chip prospect behind their guy Alan Trammell. They have Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker in the infield. Now these guys are 32, but man, that's just about as good as it gets in the middle infield. So I tried to get them to I tried to see what it would take to get Fryman, and they wanted ridiculous stuff for Fryman. I couldn't get Fryman. But look at this guy, Jose Lima. I thought, let's add Jose Lima to this deal. This guy's got a lot of potential. Stamina for days. Good fastball. Good defensive pitcher. Great control possibility. Great stuff possibility. He's got how many pitches? 6 pitches. Circle change. Sinker. Fastball. Sinker. Slider. Change and circle change. Oh, man. I'm a sucker for somebody with a lot of pitches. So I thought, let's add Jose Lima to the deal. Their GM came back and said, you'll need to add a very good player. And I thought, well, what would make this work? And I looked over this list, and I'm chuckling because, no, I'm not giving up these guys. And then I see this guy right here, Marty Clary. They agree. Our GM agrees. Who is Marty Clary, you say? Well, he's a pitcher prospect. He's currently in our rotation, and he's pitched okay this spring. Not great, but he got some reps. Got really roughed up in one game. 3 innings, gave up 11 hits and 11 runs, 10 earned runs. Ooh, to the Padres. Yikes. But, everybody has a day like that, right? He's right-handed. Our scout thinks he's mediocre. OSA agrees. He's a mediocre pitcher. He does have good movement, so he's not going to throw a whole lot of home run balls. Last year he started 17 games for us. A decent 1.23 WHIP, decent, really good 3.15 ERA. ERA plus 121. WAR 1.5. That's not bad, not terrible. But I'm not sure, he's a borderline starter, and I agree with that, and I just don't see him making it in our system. So it's a really attractive offer. Otis McDowell and Marty Clary for Matt Noakes and Jose Lima. Lima is only 17 at this point. In real history, he got called up in 1994, so that's 4 years out. So how long am I going to do this sim, man? It's 4 years out from here. He would just be coming on board, year 4, and then coming into his own maybe 4 years after that. I think it was 1999. He had an all-star year. He had a really good year in 98 and in 99. So I was really, I'm agonizing over this trade. And that's kind of where I am now on April Fool's Day, 1990. Well, that's it. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there about this reboot of the Braves and mess around, see if I can fleece the AI, load this team up with talent, and turn it into a juggernaut. Faster, better, stronger. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time for more Atlanta Braves coverage. I'll see you. Bye.